You are listening to Realign Your Life podcast, where I discuss with you strategies on how to realign your life and move towards the direction you always want to. I am Vivian, the host of this podcast, and every week I will bring value on how to improve and realign your life either through a guest or my thoughts. I can't wait to share what we have this week. It's time to realign your life. Well, welcome back to Realign Your Life podcast. This is Vivian here, the host of this show, and I am so excited and so honored to have you join in this episode today. And I tell you what, you are going to get a real good treat. Now, remember, in a previous podcast, I talked about finances, but remember, I did do a disclaimer and said that I was not an expert in this area, but that I would be bringing one on because when we are realigning our lives, our finances have a very important role in us, being able to get to the place where we want to be. So I'm going to stop all this talking because I know y'all want to hear this guest and what he's got to say about money, 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 money. So let's get this thing rolling, guys. So I want to welcome with us today, Centurio Greer. So welcome, Centurio.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. And I'm doing even better now that we have someone on this show that's going to teach us, going to help us to get to where we need to be in our finances. So listen, audience, this guy is an expert. He is located locally here in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is a partner with J&G Legacy Financial Group. So he is an expert. He is married, got 3 beautiful kids. I'm sure they're beautiful because that's what everybody say about the kids. So he can tell you more about that. But one of the reasons that he shared with me that he got into the financial industry was because he knew that people really he believed sincerely in his heart that people wanted to do what was right, what was right by their families, what's right for themselves, what's right for their communities. And he wanted to be a part of that in helping people to be able to reach that goal. So without any further ado, Centurio, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I just gave them the little cliff note.
Right. A little sizzle on the steak. That's all.
Yeah.
Man, no, it's an honor to be here, and Ms. Vivian, I appreciate the opportunity. Yes, my name is Centurio Greer from Charlotte, born and raised. I am 13 years in the business. I started my own company with my business partner right around 5.5 years ago in 2018. And that's just one thing I would encourage people to do. Don't feel like if you have a dream or a business, don't feel like you have to do it by yourself. I am very fortunate to have an awesome business partner and a good staff all around. But yes, very passionate about what I do. I know that the money conversation is logical, but there's also an emotional element to it, especially when you're dealing with people of color. We have an emotional relationship with money because our relationship with money is fairly new compared to most. So we understand that at J&G, and we've built a process to educate, to also move people to action so that they can start to do better for themselves. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm an open book. Look forward to the conversation.
Great. So tell me this. So what is it that really motivated you to get into that financial arena?
Yeah, great question. Well, two things, and everything kind of happened all at once. A complete stranger approached me and said, "Hey, I think you would be great in this line of work." At the time, I had just graduated college, did not have any idea what I was going to do. I'm going to be honest with you. I just graduated and I was just looking for a job. And again, she approached me. She saw something in me that led me to my first interview. It was a Fortune 100 company at the time. Went for my first interview, and I went back. I'll never forget. I left that interview, and I definitely felt like everyone in the building had money and was knowledgeable and was professional. Like professionalism was just screaming from the building. So I was already impressed. But then when I went to my family, started telling them where I interviewed, turns out my grandmother was a client of that firm.
Wow.
And she began to brag on the relationship she had with her advisor over the years and just how instrumental he was in her becoming wealthy. And so that was all I needed to hear. I said, all right, well, if it's good enough for grandma, right, this is good enough for me. And so that's when I started my journey. That was 2010. Yep.
Wow. That is wonderful. So, we've talked about this in previous podcast episodes, is that sometimes we go off to college and we have absolutely no idea what it is that we really want to do or to be.
Right.
And as our lives begin to evolve, sometimes we just fall into things, because I do believe with all my heart that God has purposed each and every one of us for something specific. So this is your specific gift that you are giving back. And look at it, going back to your grandma.
Right. Right.
You know what? There are
Right.
no coincidences. And so you talked about how money is relational also.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, if y'all didn't know on the podcast that I am Black, but I think y'all seen my picture. But anyway, so with us coming into the world of finances and being able to start building some capital, what are some of the myths that you found that are misconceptions around finances for people?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So I'll start with the first misconception, and it's an honest one, mistake, I should say. Most people love to invest. The first thing they want to do when they think about building wealth is I need to invest. Mm-hmm. And investing is a big part of it, but protection is the foundation that we should be building from. And what I mean by protection is your insurance, your will, your estate documents, all those sorts of things. Because if you are in your 30s, 40s, even your 50s, if you are investing, but you don't have anything to replace your income in the event something happens to you, then now all of your offspring, your family, your legacy can be in jeopardy, because there's a certain amount of money you bring into the household every month, every year. So we need to protect the most valuable assets that we have. And typically the most valuable asset is you, because you are the engine that generates all of the movement for money to come into the household to now go and invest and do all the things you want to do. So that's one misconception, is to deal with insurance last. I know it's not a fun conversation. It's not sexy, but insurance is 100% a good foundation to build on.
Well, because I hear so many times that, somebody has died and, we are trying to, and I know as a tradition for Black folk, we had to wait till everybody get there and everybody got to contribute, for this funeral. I've seen it in my own family. Mm-hmm. It's happened in my own family. So how do we begin to dispel that? And
well, so I think we're very interesting people, right? The first thing I think we need proof that insurance works. To your point, a lot of bad habits get passed down generation to generation. And so if you've never seen someone inherit $1 million, in our minds, we don't even think that we can leave $1 million. And I'm not talking property. I'm not talking business. I'm not talking land. I'm talking cash money from insurance, $1 million. So because we haven't seen it, a lot of times it's kind of the I don't want to say the fear of the unknown, but it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. So in my opinion, we need to start learning more about insurance. We've got a lot of clients who the children, they might be, adults, young professionals, and they will put their monies together to buy insurance on mom, dad, or grandmother, grandfather. And so it creates a new chain of events where now when people pass on, because we're all going to leave, but now we're starting to build a tradition of leaving a legacy. Then once you implement, your estate documents and your will and your trust, and you start doing things like that, you start learning that you can really position one or two generations, set them up for success just by utilizing the right tools. And insurance is definitely one of them. So is your estate document. Very, very important.
Wow. That's wonderful, because now we are generating generational wealth. It's going to continue on and on and on. And I heard you mention trust. And I don't know that a lot of people really understand or know what a trust entails or what that's all about.
Yeah.
Can you expand on
I can shed some light, sure. So the first thing you want to do is you definitely want to speak to a professional, and that would be an estate planning attorney. Those are the individuals that can guide you and even draft documents for you to put those things in place. But yeah, with your estate documents, there's 5 primary documents you'll have. One is your last will and testament. We all kind of refer to that as the will. Okay. Number 2 is going to be your medical directives. That's your end of life kind of, do you want to be resuscitated or not, right? That kind of stuff. Number 3 is just your durable power of attorney. So who has the ability to access your accounts, sign your name in that regard. And then number 4 is your medical power of attorney. So if you're in the hospital and you're not able to make decisions for yourself, who is that person? And then what sort of decisions would you want them to make? And then the 5th one is the trust. And so the trust is a very important piece, because that's how you can control your money and your assets from the grave, right? If there's a lot of money, and let's say you have children, whether they're young or old, and you don't want to just hand them hundreds of thousands of dollars at one time, you can put parameters in a trust that state, hey, I'm electing this individual as a trustee. That trustee now they will act out on my behalf what I would want to happen. And now I can say, at this age, you get this amount of money. If you were to hit a certain milestone and graduate from college, here's another chunk of cash, right? If there's a real estate venture or business idea that you come up with, then here's another portion, right? And then you get a certain amount each year. So it's a way to make sure the right individuals receive the money, and they receive the money in certain increments the way you would see fit. Because another misconception is, if I leave my heirs money, they'll blow it. Well, take that risk off the table by putting your estate documents in place, and now they can't blow it. So, or let me say, it's a lot harder to blow it when there's some guardrails that you put in place for them.
Right. Yep. I tell you what, this is so good. We're gonna have to. You will be coming back, right? You come back. We're gonna need. This is so good. One of the things that I get these letters all the time in my mail, and I'm sure that other people do. Financial planners, or we hear that word tossed around so much now. Financial planner. But most people feel that I don't have anything to go to a financial planner. I don't have any money. I don't have any savings. So is that true? Is that a true fact? Do you have to have a certain amount of money to be able to speak with a financial planner?
It's a great question. And that's another misconception. I'm glad you brought that up. So I want to make a distinction between financial advisor and financial planner. Okay. Sometimes those can be one and the same. Sometimes, like for instance, myself, but then there's other times where people may work for an institution, say a bank or an investment firm, Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, something like that. And their job primarily is to manage and invest your assets. That's going to be more of an investment advisor. Okay. They play a very strong role because again, they guide you on where to invest, how much to invest, all that good stuff. Then a financial planner is someone who is now saying, what are your goals and what are your objectives for yourself and your family? What's the time frame that we need to accomplish those goals? And what's necessary for us to take the action steps to get you there? So they're more of think of a navigation system where you're saying, hey, I need to start I'm leaving my home and I'm driving from Charlotte to California. Well, there's a lot of highways you could take. There's a lot of construction you can avoid. There might be bad weather. There might be traffic from accidents, things like that. There might be pit stops on the way where you need to stop and get something to eat or rest. That's what a planner does. They help you look at all of the parts, your cash flow, your debt, your insurance, your investments, and look at all of those factors and say, here's the right approach, not just in investments, but all the above, right? How do we put you in the best position to reach your goal? So planner versus advisor, sometimes they're one and the same. Like us in our firm, we kind of do all the above, but you don't need a lot of money. Sometimes when you walk into a bank, depending on the bank you walk into, they might have some minimum requirements. So those requirements might be $250,000, $500,000 of assets. But if you walk in and you find someone like myself, where I can be a planner as well as an advisor, now there isn't a minimum requirement because our work together may be centered around, debt management, building up emergency funds, and planning for your children's college. So that doesn't necessarily mean you need to have $500,000 to talk to me. So it's just understanding the difference between those two professionals and align yourself. I love the name of the podcast, Realign. So align yourself with the right professional based on where you are in life.
So that is so wonderful. And I am so glad that you brought all of that out because it sounds like you're a coach. Kind of like a coach also. And, just bringing up all of these different parameters and, like you were saying, we're setting up all of these guardrails, for us to be successful and financially. So, and in speaking of that, what would you say or what advice would you give to parents or teachers or leaders? What kind of skills do we need to be sharing with our youth and our young people as far as, money goes? Because I'm telling you, I've got 3 grandchildren and they just think, hey, Grandma, can we do this? Grandma, can we do that? And I'm like, y'all got any money? Can we go to Five Below? Y'all got any Five Below money?
Right.
Come on. Or, they're watching TikTok and seeing all of these things on social media, and they just think it's there. So how do we begin to teach our children? What advice would you give?
And that's always going to be challenging. To your point, social media has changed the world. I'm an 80s baby. So our generation, I can remember before social media and I can remember life with it. And so the kids now, they don't know a life without social media. So where I think the conversation starts with our youth is understanding how do you evaluate what wealth is, right? So first off, give them an understanding of wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. Those are two totally different things. You can make a lot of money, but if you spend all of that money, then you're not becoming wealthy. So the first thing is have the conversation around wealth and what that is first. What things actually build people wealth? Businesses, right? Real estate, inheriting money. You can marry and become wealthy, as well as saving your income and saving the money you're making to build more and invest. Those are the 5 ways to build wealth. Buying clothes, buying cars, video games. I'm not saying that that's bad, but those things don't build wealth. So once you can identify these sorts of actions actually build wealth, then the next question or the next thing is, how do you track your wealth? And so the conversation around net worth, I think, is very, very important. Now, that might be, depending on the age of, who you're talking to, that might be a bit much, but just understanding assets versus liabilities. Okay. And I would relate it to people. There are certain friends that bring value to your life. Okay. Right. There are certain people that take from you. Okay. The people that bring value, those are assets. The people that take from you and you always seem to get caught up into some trouble, those are the liabilities. No. So how do we grow our assets and remove our liabilities in life as well as in money?
Yes. And that takes me to this next question that I want to ask you. So when someone finds themselves in a financial setback, or they are overloaded with debt, and we know that is, happening to a lot of people, and they are trying to realign their financial situation. And you mentioned earlier having an emergency fund and, setting up a small savings. And if you're already in a situation, how do you handle that if you're already behind the 8 ball?
Yeah. And that's that's a great question. And of course, right, when we describe a situation, that could be a million different things, right? So the first thing is you always want to live below your means, right? Or at least don't live above your means. That's number one, because that way, when a financial setback happens, if you're not living above your means, then you're probably more likely to have some sort of emergency fund or something you can tap into, right? That's number one. Number two, this is why insurance is so important. A lot of times people might develop illnesses, or they might have some sort of disability and challenges to where they're now not able to work, right, to continue to earn money. Well, that's why you have disability insurance, to make sure income can still come in the home, even if you're not able to go work for money every month. So again, emergency funds and insurance. The other thing is, if you have a lot of debt, okay, first thing is get all of your debt and look at what types of debt do you have. There's good debt and there's bad debt, okay? The bad ones are typically the high interest rate credit cards, predatory lending on certain things that, personal loans. I've seen car loans where you can tell it was predatory. So you want to get all of your debt, tally it up, and look at what is the interest rates you're paying on all those different types of debt. Some lines of credit might only be a 7% interest rate. Others might be 29. Well, the ones that are very, very high interest rates, those are the ones that hurt you the most. So now you can at least attack the right types of debt first to eliminate all that extra interest. And again, you definitely want to have an advisor or a planner or coach, someone that can sit down and look at these things with you. Because I'm not going to say the last thing you want to do, but a lot of times people will liquidate 401ks. And I'm not saying that that's what you should or should not do, because every situation is different. but that shouldn't be your first. That should not be your first resort. Is liquidating accounts that are designed to build for your future to deal with certain things right now. So again, live below your means. If you don't have the money, we might not need to take a trip this year. Sorry, right? We don't need to take that trip. We don't need to, buy that car or do certain things. Maybe we need to now build a foundation first, because again, if you're in a bind and there really is no place to go, now you have to use debt to get out of that situation. And then you end up, it's that cycle just repeating itself. So again, every situation is different, but that's kind of some rule of thumb remarks.
Well, we definitely got to have you come back and do some classes here for us. What would you advise us, our listening audience out there, and people, I hope y'all are taking notes, really, because this is good. This is good for me. How would you advise people to stay up on financial news, or is that necessary for people to do? And if so, what are some ways, or what are some of the media or whatever that you would advise?
Great question. And this is where social media can be powerful, or it can also hurt you, right? We all know that the types of things you click on and you view, right? The algorithms are going to give you more of that information. So I would encourage people, look up certain podcasts. Now, I will say you have to be careful who you listen to. But you can also go to Wall Street Journal. You can subscribe to Forbes. Institutions like that, news publications like that, where at least you'll start to get information. Some of it you might not understand, but this is where I say, I have clients all the time. They'll send me an article. Hey, I read this article, don't quite understand what this means. Can we sit down and have a conversation? Again, it's surrounding yourself with professionals, a CPA, financial planner or an advisor, bankers, insurance professionals, attorneys, just having those people in your Rolodex. So when you come across information that you think is important or pertinent to your situation, you can now go to that professional that you trust, and they can kind of decipher the information that you might not be able to figure out for yourself. But there's a ton of podcasts out there. I don't necessarily want to steer anybody towards a certain type of content, but I would say, research money podcast or wealth podcast, and just find people that you connect with and start listening to more of that. And you'll notice you'll start to get more of that in your algorithms or in your news feeds on YouTube, Instagram, etc.
Well, one of the things that I'm always saying is that, and finally learning, is that money is inanimate. It's an inanimate object, and it's just waiting for you to tell it what to do. I have to tell that money, I have to tell that $50, hey, this is what you're going to be doing today. This is what I need you to do for me. And so we have to be able to take that ownership and be the stewards of what God has given us.
Right.
And I am reminded of that story in the Bible of those seven talents. And it just scares me to death sometimes that, okay, Lord, how am I doing? Because I don't want you to take away nothing you've already given me. You've worked really hard and really diligently to give me this. And so that is about being a good steward. And I just love the fact that you shared with us what your company represents. So share with us how you are different from your competitors.
Great question.
What makes J&G so unique?
Yeah, great question. So first off, we are a Black-owned firm. I would say 99% of our clients are people of color. men, women, singles as well as couples. So again, our approach is going to be different because the who we want to serve, we understand that emotional connection to money that other ethnic groups might not have, right? So that's number one. Our mission, we're mission driven just as much as we are income driven, right? So that's number one. Number two, we can be both planners and or investment advisors and or insurance agents. Most cases, when you go to an insurance company, no knock on insurance. I just mentioned how important insurance is. But if you go to an insurance company and those individuals don't have the investment licenses and the credentials, the only thing they can really guide you on is insurance. If you go to an investment banker or an investment advisor, sometimes they don't have the insurance knowledge and expertise. So all they can do is talk to you about investments. You come to someone like us, we understand how all of those work together. And then we now implement the cash flow, the debt, the insurance, the estate planning. So when you come to us, we can be objective and not need to sell you a product to make money. And that's something that I think is very important for people to understand. When you go to an investment professional or a financial professional, make it very, very plain and clear what you're looking for and what your expectations are out of that relationship. If that individual can't meet those expectations, then you need to move on to another person. And so that's how you really find the right professional to work with. Our process is very net worth focused. So our first meeting with clients, they will know what their net worth is. They will know if they have a strong balance sheet, and they can also identify areas of weakness. If we see that they need insurance, we'll let them know that they have an insurance shortfall. If we see that their investments aren't being managed properly, we can let them know that as well. If we see that they're not on track to retire, we can let them know that as well. So our approach is, here's your goals that you want. Here's where you stand. Is there a bridge, or is there a roadmap we can design to get you there? So it's not so much we want you to buy a product or invest money. We want you to win, and what gives you the best chance to win. I would say that's what makes J&G different.
So that gets right back to that introduction where we talked about how, that most people want to do what's right by themselves, by their families, by their communities. And it sounds like that's what J&G is all about. It's helping people, and you are in the position to help those people to do the right thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and that just really plays into the fact as we wind this down, because I don't want you to give him everything.
Okay.
So come back. Y'all got to come back because he's coming back. So what are 3 things that you would leave with our audience today? What are 3 things that you would share with them?
Very, very good. Number 1, do not be afraid to invest. There's a fear of the unknown. That's a natural human instinct. Fear what I don't understand. And a lot of times we don't understand the stock market. So don't be afraid to invest. Speak with a professional and figure out what ways can you invest that are kind of entry level, that do not require a high level of expertise and a high level of risk. A good professional can guide you on how to get started investing so you can have your money growing and working for you while still learning how the investment world works. So you can be learning while making money at the same time. So don't be afraid to invest. That's number 1. Number 2, sit down and look at what you earn, and sit down and look at how much insurance you have. If you look at what you earn versus how much insurance you have, if you don't at least have 10 times your income in life insurance, and you have young children, then you need to ask yourself, if something happened to me yesterday, the funds the insurance I do have, how long would that last my family?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you got to be honest with yourself. And if you have a spouse, look at your spouse and say, hey, something happened to me and you only had 2 years of my salary. What would happen? Have that conversation. And if you realize there's a shortfall, you need to go speak to a professional. And then the last thing, we talked about generational wealth. Generational wealth, it does not exist if the generations are not communicating with one another. Mm. So that means we need to have these conversations with our parents. We cannot keep everything a secret anymore. Mom, dad, grandmother, grandfather, auntie, uncle. Listen, I know that this is a personal conversation, but we should not have to dig through paperwork and boxes and envelopes to try to figure out what our loved ones may or may not have had. So we need the elder generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers. We need them to start pulling their children and grandchildren to the side. Or even in my case, I was the catalyst where I went up to my grandparents and I sat them down and we got all of their stuff in place. Because if there's no plan of action, then wealth will get lost. Yeah. It's not a chance that it will. It's going to happen. You will lose out on wealth and opportunities. And we all have heard the saying with energy, right? Energy is never lost. It just moves from one party to the next. Same thing applies with money. Money doesn't vanish. It just means somebody else becomes more wealthy, right? And you become less wealthy. So how do we protect our assets for our loved ones and our families to maximize what they receive? And that's where the communication and the trust has to take place between those generations. So those are the 3 things I would say.
Thank you for that. And listen, people, make sure that you have taken note of that, because these things are so important. And if you are truly serious about realigning your life and living that life that you've always wanted, these are important facts. I would call them facts, Santeria, that yes, we all need to have here. So you've heard this wonderful, wonderful man share with us. So tell us, I know there's somebody out there that's listening that would love to touch base with J&G. So how do they reach you?
Yeah, you can definitely visit our website, www.J and spelled out J&G legacy.com. So you can visit our website there. We've got videos, we've got ways to contact us on there. Again, that's www.jandglegacy.com. You can email me, C Greer, and that's Greer is spelled Grier. So C Greer at jandglegacy.com. And then you can call our office, 704-557-9786. Feel free to give us a call. If no one is in the office, that will route you to either me or my business partner's mobile phone. So you can give us a call. Don't text, because we cannot receive text messages on that line, but call us at 557-9786.
Great. Fantastic. Now, I know that after hearing all of this wonderful information, you've got some people salivating and they want to go ahead and get started. So is there an opportunity to have a consultation with you? And is there a cause for a consultation, or what does that look like?
Great question. No, so our initial conversation with prospects or prospective clients, I should say, we do not charge a fee. And so I would tell folks, if you reach out to us, we will schedule a 15 to 30 minute just intro call just to get to know you, get more acquainted. with your personality, as well as get acquainted with kind of your goals and those hot buttons that are important to you financially. So we can do that. And then after that, we can even schedule a Zoom. So regardless of where you may live, we're licensed in a lot of different states. So we can schedule Zoom, and that's where we'll take a solid hour to really get a better look at your financial picture. And at the end of that meeting is where we'll be able to explain if there will be a fee to work with us or not. It really just depends on what that client is looking for, and what sort of financial position they're in. Because sometimes we don't charge a fee and sometimes a fee is required. But there's 2 conversations before that even happens.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You have made me want to go back and do some researching, and also to talk to my family about, some things, and putting some things in place, because this is very, very important as we march on in realigning our lives. So you have promised that you will come back again.
Whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready.
We'll be getting some feedback and some remarks from this. So I just want to thank you again for sharing all of this wonderful information. And hey, audience, you've heard, he's giving you all of this information on how to contact him. And as you're listening to this, if you didn't get it all, just stop the tape and rewind and make sure you're getting it down. So thank you once again for listening in. And as we realign our lives, I wish you much prosperity and peace. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The best gift that you could give me is to share this podcast with family and friends. And don't forget to review it. That way, this podcast will grow organically. If you need to reach out to me, please check out my Facebook page, DM me there, or you can email me at godskow@gmail.com. We have upcoming Bible studies that we would love for you to join us in, or if there is a guest or someone that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, please let me know. We are here to work together to realign our lives. Until the next episode, take care, and I look forward to sharing more and more with you as we realign our lives. Peace until next week.